What's up, everybody? Conor Baxter here. As you can see, got a few of my toys back behind me. And yeah, here in Maui, we get to have a lot of different conditions from downwinding to foiling. We have lots of wind, lots of waves. Sometimes, if we're lucky, no wind, or as we say here in Maui, Maui glass, where it's light winds. But yeah, these are some of the toys I get to play with. Starting here on my left, we got the infamous Longboard. This board has been my go-to as soon as they released it. Zane and I have traveled around the world using this board for the Ultimate Waterman and other events, as well as just playing around and having a good time here in Maui. Really great shape, 9.0, high performance shape. You got a really thin outline. I typically go with the thruster setup. It makes it real turning, and the maneuverability is really nice on it. As you can see, 9.1, 22, so pretty small. This guy, Matt, professional longboarder, had a few things to say and design things, so that's why I think this board is so good. Yeah, and if I want it more classic, more longboardy style, I'll just throw a bigger center fin in right here, so then I can walk up to the nose a little bit easier without that tail breaking loose on me. But like I said, typically I have this setup. It's really nice. I like this board from anywhere from shoulder high to bigger. I mean, this thing handles, like I said, we took this out in New Zealand, Zane and I, and probably solid overhead beach break, and every other competitor broke their longboard. Zane and I were the only two competitors that didn't break our board. We got that high performance carbon, blue carbon, ultimately strong, nice and light. Next, we have SUP surf. Yeah, we're here in Maui, and no matter where we go, there's always some type of surf to catch. And this is my go-to right now. This is the 6.8 Pro. Zane and Benoit had a lot to say in the design and helping testing with it. So if those two guys have a few things to say, I can't imagine it going wrong. But yeah, this is the 6.8. Really fun board, like I said, for all conditions. You got a good amount of volume in it. You got that fishtail right here, so no matter what, if it's smaller or bigger, you can kind of really drive off that tail and really pop off the top of the lip, for instance. You got the higher volume throughout the whole board, so it is a small board, but it's pretty floaty, for instance, compared for the size. We got 6.8, 24, 76 liters, so pretty solid amount of literage. And yeah, this board works in all the conditions. When it's smaller, for instance, I like to throw in the quad setup, which is really cool. You can have both options. So I'll throw two bigger ones up here, two smaller back ones in there, and that just helps you kind of drive and generate speed and power in those smaller conditions. And then if the waves do get bigger, this board still handles. It's a really fun board for small to big waves. I mean, I've seen Zane and myself for sure, but Zane rip and win events in about knee-high to waist-high, and then just down when we went to the Pan American Games, the bigger days, he was still on this board. So he just throws in a thruster, same myself. I'll throw in a thruster or a quad to kind of switch up the feeling of the board based on conditions. And yeah, got that same technology, sandwich composite, blue carbon, and super light, really versatile, and a fun board just to have in the quiver, especially here in Maui, whether we're going and surfing Hokipa or going to the south side and catching some smaller waves with the family. Next, foil time, right? This is the craze. This is what everyone's doing, whether it's your grandpa or your son. You know, my dad, 74, he's foiling now and using the wing, and myself, and then you got the next generation of kids that are like 10, 11, 12 that are ripping on the foil, whether you have the wing in hand or just plain old SUP downwind foil. This is the new craze. This is what everyone's loving, and I've been loving this board just because it's kind of one board fits all your needs. This is the Takeoff. Really fun board. Trevor had a lot of design and input on this, as well as other foil athletes, but right here you got the dimensions, 4.7 by 24 Takeoff. And like I was saying, the versatility of this board is really cool because I can use this if I want to go SUP surf, catch a couple waves SUP surfing. If I do want to take it on a SUP downwinder, works great. And at the end of the day, you got the inserts for the foot straps. So if I want to take this board and go wing, same thing. We can go take it winging, and it works in all these different conditions. Not sure if you can see it, but we got that recessed deck as well, making it really, really comfortable for standing. Your feet just kind of fit into this little slight recess, kind of lowering your center of gravity, so helping with some stability things, especially if you're on the takeoff part of winging or the takeoff part of paddling around. It's a 4.7, so it seems really small, but with that slight recess, the thick rails, lots of volume, this board is your go-to for any type of foiling activity. Obviously, you can get more specific and get a more downwind specific board or a specific board for winging, but like I said, this is one board that kind of fits all your needs in the foil world, and yeah, pretty fun, pretty sweet. Fits in all your small cars, pretty tiny, right? Really fun, and yeah. And then, as some people might say, my specialty, the race board. This is something I'm doing all year round, whether it's training purposes, competition purposes, teaching clinics. We're on the race board. This right here, this particular model is the Sprint. It's 14 feet, 20.75 wide, so pretty narrow, but with this huge recessed deck, you're getting a lot of stability because you're lowering your center of gravity. You're actually standing on the water, if not under the water, so you're getting a lot of stability from that right there alone. So you can go a lot narrower than you probably would expect, or you'd be pretty surprised how narrow you could go. This is the Flatwater machine, as they all say, so it works phenomenal in flat water. Here in Hawaii, we don't get a ton of those conditions, but in the harbor, we do get sometimes with these little rolling bumps that don't break. They're not really downwind swells because the wind is blocked and sheltered in our harbor. And this board works phenomenal for that. It jumps on these little bumps really easy, super efficiently. If I am doing any kind of, technical or sprinting, I do hop over to my All-Star, which is currently one in the mainland and one in Europe. That's where the next competitions are, that's why. So I just have this board, try to have always at least one race board here on island. There's not as many events here, so I don't need a whole quiver of race boards, for instance. But this is my go-to training board for right now. As the year progresses, for instance, we got the new All-Star 2024 coming in, and I'm using about 20.5. That's my new width. I've been really loving that board. The All-Star is phenomenal. My go-to, as everyone pretty much knows, it works in all conditions, whether I'm doing downwind, flat water, 200-meter sprint, or the technical racing. That board is kind of my go-to. We redesigned the tail on the All-Star, which is really cool because it is allowing the board now to turn so much easier, way more effortlessly, and the release of the water off the tail is actually a lot less. So it's not sticking to that tail and making that big of wave. It's kind of flowing off that tail like glass, like butter, just right off the tail, and making it really fun and usable for anybody that wants to jump on it. Another race board that's not currently here behind me is the Gen R. This new board is crazy. I love surf races. If anybody knows me, I'll tell them over and over, downwind and technical surf races. Those are my two favorite classes and two favorite divisions. And finally, we got a really fun board for that. The Gen R is a flat deck board, big square tail, so the turning ability on it is very easy, really user friendly. And if you're just jumping into the race scene, it's not as aggressive with these dugouts, and the shape of it is a real more user-friendly shape, which allows you to perform in the surf races really well. Any technical races that you're going to be doing lots of turning in, this is my go-to board for that. Next, paddles. Right here we got the Enduro. So this paddle is what I would use for my SUP surfing and SUP foiling needs. You got the classic teardrop shape. This shape has been around since day one, since the first day I got into paddling. This is all we had, for instance. We didn't have a bunch of different ranges of sizes and shapes, for instance, but we've just kind of perfected, and Starboard and the guys at the HQ have just really perfected not only the technology and the materials we're using, but the shape, the design, the angles. It might not seem like a lot, but just changing this angle makes a big difference. And the reason I like this kind of shape for the SUP surfing and the foiling is you're getting more surface area. So you're grabbing the water quite easily, not having to really focus too much on catching and burying the blade so much. You have so much blade and so much surface area, it's going to grab the water no matter what for you without even thinking about it. As well as when I'm turning and doing a bottom turn off the bottom, I want that surface area so I can really drag and lean my body weight into the rail of my board and over that rail of the board into the paddle, for instance, and get it all the way out to here and kind of turn and pivot off of that, for instance. Really great blade. We went with the little scoop back here just because we loved it on our old Bolt paddles and our new current Lima paddles. Really grabs the water quite nicely. And this is a really great one. This is the Enduro Small. Plenty of paddle for me. Don't really need too much more than that. And that's my go-to for foiling and for SUP surfing. Next, my favorite paddle. As everyone knows, the SUP racing is kind of my thing, and I tend to do it pretty well and know how to do it. So this is my go-to paddle that I've been paddling with pretty much the last, decade or over a decade. You know, as soon as the Lima came out, this is the upgraded version from the Bolt. So this has been kind of pretty classic shape we've been staying with and trending with. It's more of this square rectangle shape, longer, so you can get deeper into the water, and it has a similar surface area, but instead of being the teardrop, it's longer and narrower. So when you're doing a race for over an hour or even under an hour, you can kind of get into this nice rhythm without feeling too much strain on your shoulder. With that teardrop, it's more surface area, so it's grabbing the water a little more aggressively, so over time you get a little more tired, obviously. This blade back here, you can see the concave, the scoop of it. That really helps with catching the water and holding the water throughout your stroke, for instance. And what we've been playing around with is on the front here as well. And the biggest purpose of this is, one, the catch, obviously trying to dive it in real nice and efficiently, but we've reduced the thickness. So previous years, the paddle was about that thick where you see that ridge. So that's a lot more material and a lot more carbon and things you're having to use, for instance, to have the paddle be strong and endurable. Now we have these two ridges that's stiffening up the blade as well. We were able to thin out the paddle a little bit, so reducing that weight some bits. And yeah, the Lima is my go-to. And basically for racing purposes, if I'm doing like a distance or downwind race, I would use the Lima large. That's what I like to use for all the distance. It's a little bit softer on the shoulders, for instance, as the extra large is a little more grip, more surface area, right? And that's what I'd be using for all those kind of races to keep that longer, more consistent cadence up. When I do go to a technical race, for instance, I'm actually going with the bigger blade. So I'd upgrade to the extra large. I'd shorten my paddle, for instance, where with the long distance stuff, I have it about a fist above my head, for instance, right about there. When I go for the technical and sprinting stuff, I lower my paddle about head height. I'm taking shorter, quicker strokes, higher cadence, so that's why the bigger blade is nice for that. And I'm getting lower in a bigger staggered stance, so that's why I'm allowed to kind of, or not allowed, but that's why I tend to trend with a little bit shorter of a blade for those 200-meter races, for instance. And as far as the stiffness, not super crazy, but I do like to go with the stiffest one we have in the lineup just to keep that power in there and not lose any power with deflection. But it's all a preference thing. So if you find that your shoulders are kind of getting eaten up a little bit while paddling, try a little bit softer of the blade or a little bit softer of the shaft. And that's the beauty of Starboard. We have a range of stiffnesses ranging, I believe, from 29 up to 35, something like that. So yeah, you can find what works great for you. And yeah, that's my quiver.